And I think we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Uh, Brian, welcome. Can you hear me?
Sure can, Andy. Great to see you once again after a month hiatus. I know you spoke to our founder Maxim last month, and I saw the video, so it went really well.
Yeah. It was really good. I mean, yeah, it's been yeah, we skipped a month, didn't we? Yeah, last month we had the founder of Sentiment, Maxim, who was in the region. Saw him met him in Singapore for Token 2049, and then caught up with him several times while he was here. And it was great to have him in the office, on stage, and talking data to the fans.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I think the vast majority of our team ended up going to Malaysia this year and got to meet up with you. And I unfortunately could not, but I know it was a great time, and hopefully we get another opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to catching up with you in person, and maybe doing this live.
That would be
In
awesome.
the same location. That would be great. Yeah. How have you
I look
been,
forward to
Brian?
that. Yeah, I've been good. Been really good. Obviously, the markets have heated up quite a bit, so there's been a lot to talk about, a lot to report on here at Santiment, and the entire community seems to have perked up crypto wide right now with so much happening, and altcoins in particular really booming here in the last give or take 3 to 4 weeks now. After it
Yeah.
was kind of a Bitcoin dominant run for a lot of the year, honestly. And even with 37.7K Bitcoin at the time of this video,
Mhm.
that's really not the story. I think the story is a lot of the huge runs from assets like Solana and Chainlink and Render most recently that have been really dominating headlines.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's just jump right into it. So, welcome everyone. Today is Thursday, the 16th of November. Over where I'm at, it's still Wednesday, the 15th of November. Where you're at, Brian?
Yep, still the 15th. It's 5:30 p.m. here in the US.
Awesome, and it's 9:36 a.m. here in Malaysia. Okay, so welcome everyone. Let's jump right into it. Look, as Brian mentioned, the markets have been heating up, and it's heated up quite a lot since we were last online, and since we last chatted. It's been quite the rally, and then I think it cooled off for a couple of days or maybe a day, and then looks like it's heating up again. So what's happening? Can you shed some light on this, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about how we can approach the topics right before the call, and we can talk kind of about the most recent things that have happened along with the previous month. And we can start with just the overall landscape, which is, a sea of green throughout crypto over the past 30 days. In fact, right around October 15th or 16th, depending on your time zone, was when
Mhm.
prices really began taking off. So we're looking at just about an exact snapshot of the 30-day bull run that we've really experienced here in crypto. And a lot of prices have risen. Whoops, some a little more than others. I accidentally clicked a button there. Um, let's go back to 30 days. There we go. So you can see, even with all markets up, right? There are some that have really stood out. You can see Thorchain here being the most notable over the past 30 days, despite really not getting nearly as much attention as Solana, which has been kind of the big talk of the week, up
Mhm.
174% now in the past 30 days. And the other very interesting story would be FTT, the native token of bankrupt company FTX, which I don't know. I hear a new story every week about how they are attempting to relaunch and rebrand, and uh, it's difficult to figure out whether the token is gaining this kind of value due to, um, the liquidations that have been going on the last couple months and the trading pairs involved that may still be active as Ethereum and Bitcoin have to be transferred out using FTT, or it's simply kind of almost a meme type of situation where people are doing this intentionally because they find it humorous. It's just about the 1 year anniversary of FTX collapsing. And, we've seen this kind of thing before. I remember Luna was doing this last year uh, after it collapsed, and it had a run for a temporary amount of time. But regardless, I don't want to focus too much on one particular asset with our limited time. I think the moral of the story here is almost no matter what you've been in, with maybe a few exceptions, you've seen a positive return over the past 30 days. But focusing on the ones that really have had the most on-chain activity and the bullish divergences would have made you a whole lot more percentage returns if you were really focusing on which ones were having those big breakout signals.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Chainlink's gone absolutely nuts. Solana, as you mentioned, Solana's gone nuts, and it's interesting with Solana going having such crazy gains in the last 30 days. FTX is FTX used to be, or still is, the largest bag holder of Solana, and they've been given the right to sell off. I think, was it 100? Was it 100 mil? No, sorry. There was a
I think
number,
it
right?
was
They
nine
limit.
figures. It was at least 100 million.
Yeah, it was 100 million a day or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's still pumping. So that's really interesting.
And that's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because we're all excited about market caps going up, but the reasoning, if it's associated with something like the FTX liquidation, that means there's an expiration date once the liquidation is complete. And
Mhm.
one can presume that there might be a bit of artificial inflation to some market caps because of that we need to be a bit concerned about. The average trader isn't paying attention to the reason. They're just looking at the price returns right now and
Yeah,
trying to figure out which bag to FOMO into. So
yeah,
we,
yeah,
as expert analysts like we are, we just have to be um, objective when it comes to you know looking at past pumps versus what the next 30 days can look like now that we're here.
yeah. Absolutely. Um, I know some of the reasons that I've heard that Solana is pumping so hard is because there was a new method for the validator node, and so that's garnered quite some support, and hence why it may be pumping.
Hmm.
But you counter that with the amount of Solana that's being sold on the market on a daily
Yep.
basis. It's interesting to see where it's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, eh, to an extent, we're seeing pumps based on where sharks and whales want to pump them, and lately it has been Solana, regardless of the validator nodes that are likely um, helping to pump the price right now. But Chainlink, for example, huge social media following. When we post something on social media regarding Chainlink,
Hmm.
whether it's good or bad news, it garners a lot of attention comparatively to other assets. And that kind of gives us an indication of just how many people are really rooting for it. So when our altcoins start pumping, Chainlink breaking out is not a surprise to us at all based on that.
Yeah, Chainlink's the other one that's gone absolutely nuts, hasn't it?
Yeah. No, I mean, they've all a lot of them have had runs. I
Yeah.
remember 2 to 3 day runs for many different assets out there. Rune has been kind of a big recent gainer, and I'm not surprised to see that it's more than 3x, getting close to 4x now just in the past 30 days. Caspa is a little more under the radar, but has had a huge run. I know Avalanche was having a 2 or 3 day stretch where it was garnering a significant amount of social dominance. Um, and we can even measure that when it comes to social dominance. This is interesting. You would think that Bitcoin's discussion rate is up compared to the previous 30 days, but it was actually being talked about more between September 15th and October 15th compared to October 15th and November 15th. So it's down 14.5% in discussion, while assets like Solana, you can see almost double the amount of discussion compared to last month. Let me see if I can find Link. Link is actually down once again. Tether, interestingly, is being talked about more. I think that's a bit of a story as well. And then there's a lot of one-off assets. Here's FTT up almost double what it was last month, but they're kind of all over the place. And this is an interesting metric, which you may think is kind of a pump indicator, but in actuality, when you see, something like Solana getting so much more attention compared to other assets, that means the mainstream is paying attention to that project in particular, and it actually indicates a more probable likelihood of a top forming, because the mainstream crowd, if you talk about the average trader out there, especially an average trader who's trading every day, that average trader loses money overall. The ones that make money are the big time shark and whale wallets who can actually move markets and start their mini bear runs and mini bull runs in their favor, however they'd like to do it and when they'd like to do it. And then of course the hodlers, those are the people who consistently make money. Of course there's outliers, but if you're talking about averages, you don't want to be the average swing trader who's following along on the choo-choo train as everyone's cheering for Solana, because
Yeah.
that's often when the tops form.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's just so many stories here, and we can get to as many as we can. I think it's usually wise to take a look at Bitcoin's health, not just because Bitcoin's the largest asset, but because it's sort of the anchor for the rest of the many assets that have been pumping to continue pumping. And if it's starting to look a bit dicey, that means there could be a lot of altcoin shedding that could happen over the next 30 days. Should we start to see Bitcoin start to dip a little bit back below 35K or get close to 30K? So one thing I wanted to start off with in terms of actual news is the CPI report that was released a couple days ago. That was actually quite positive. It showed that inflation had been reduced a bit more than expected, and we immediately saw markets pump. We're looking at the past 6 months now, but I can even zoom into just the past month so we get a better look. So the CPI report happened, I want to say here, was it? Yeah. So the CPI report happened on the 13th. We saw a little bit of volatility, and then we started to see this pump again.
Yeah.
It was kind of a second wave to what we had already seen at the end of October. And gold actually started pumping up too after the report came out, while Bitcoin fell. So everyone was like, oh no, are people getting back into stocks and gold now and leaving crypto alone? Well, turns out the answer is no, because over the past 24 hours, crypto took off again. This is just Bitcoin, of course, but many assets, did a whole lot more of an ascension than this line did. But regardless, we're seeing Bitcoin back up at 37.6K now. Ethereum's this fainter dark line, and it's been rebounding back up to 2065 after dropping back below at the beginning of the week. So there was a bit of like a hangover where, just 2 to 3 days ago, people were starting to really believe that the party was over. And we saw a lot of FUD and people saying, I'm taking profit here. It's been a good ride. And then all of a sudden we see another leg up that's getting people questioning their own judgment once again, such as the cycle of crypto, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think what anchoring on Bitcoin, the the thing is, I think, and I'm sure you'll go through later. When you look at the amount of Bitcoin that are on exchanges, and I'm assuming that the percentage is pretty low, we can see how easily it can pump, because when the demand comes on, and you've only got that fixed supply, or very low supply on exchanges, it doesn't take much to pump that price up, does it?
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, this is a 3-year look at the supply of Bitcoin on exchanges. And I think
Wow.
the trend is quite visible here. We had, looks like technically the top was either here or here. They were very close, either February or May of 2021. We'll just call it May, when there was about 14.3% of BTC sitting on exchanges. That's the entire supply of Bitcoin, 14.3%. We're calling that a little more than 1 out of every 8 Bitcoin on exchanges. Now we're officially below 5.5% at
Ho, ho, ho,
5.499. So
ho.
now it's getting close to 1 out of every 20 Bitcoin are on exchanges. Quite a change
Yeah.
in just 2.5 years or so and change. And that drastically changes the impact of each individual trade and how much weight it can have on the overall market value at any given time.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, if you look at that trend, I mean, it's just been clear. It's a very clear trend that the amount of Bitcoin sitting on exchanges.
Yeah, and we can go even further
Yeah,
back here. I mean, you can see that it was kind of a tale of two halves, because
yeah,
November 17 through March of 2020. This was of course right when COVID went mainstream and hit and rocked the world, and that was right
yeah.
around the time that the most supply on exchanges was happening. So
Mm.
the average news outlet expected a lot of people to begin to move their Bitcoin to exchanges to sell. But really, that only happened for a very limited amount of time. If we're really precise, it happened, between March 11th and 12th or so, depending on your time zone.
Yeah,
And we only saw a very small uptick, and that, not coincidentally, was the top. And since that time, and the fear of COVID began to really envelop the world, we saw supply moving down. Then, of course, we saw this huge bull run in late 2020. And that's when people said, okay, now I've got to take some serious profits. They moved it onto exchanges for a couple of months, and then it just resumed downward. And now we're seeing levels that we have not seen on exchanges in 6 years. It's pretty crazy.
yeah. That's pretty crazy. My gosh.
And the obvious question is, how much does this correlate with price? Well, it kind of depends. From a theoretical standpoint, less BTC on exchanges means less risk of a sell-off. But on the flip side, it can mean that there is less implied circulation going on, because there's going to be less trading, if you're, of course, excluding dark pools and non-exchange types of transactions that are somewhat rare. So you have less Bitcoin on exchanges, meaning whales and sharks aren't going to be able to rock crypto the way they would when there's way more supply on exchanges. But it means that on a day-to-day basis, there's probably going to be less expected trades.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Hey, I'm not sure what you had planned for today, but I'm actually I'm quite taken away by the by links, but by what's been happening on Chainlink. Um, could we quickly take a look at what's
Sure, we
going
can.
on? Yeah,
Yeah, let's see what's been going on. It's the asset has just about doubled in the past 30 days, maybe just a couple of percentage points short. But if we zoom in here, we'll just look at the last 6 months. Yeah, you can clearly see when the takeoff point was just about 4 weeks ago.
yeah,
October 18th, price was at $7.27. It got as high as just over $16, and it now sits at just below $15. So it is still very much an asset that has rewarded those patient traders who were around and accumulating back here in the early fall. We can see trading volume is up, transaction volume is kind of mediocre, but the trading volume is still there. There's a lot of interest in moving Link on a day-to-day basis. The network has unsurprisingly become a lot more active. Daily active addresses, we can see a couple waves here. These are actually very impactful in terms of tops. More
mhm,
unique addresses usually means there's people trying to take profit after a pump. So you had a couple days to react to this semi top that happened in late October, and then there was a second wave, and then I'd say 3 days later is when the true top hit. At least for now, there could be another true top. Um,
Mm.
so active addresses, they're more consistently up, which is good for the long term, indicating there's more utility on the network. Circulation not quite as high as I'd expect for an asset that has gotten this much attention and has pumped as much as it has, but it's not the end of the world. Uh, what I do think is something you really need to watch would be the MVRV. It's actually off the scale. I won't even zoom the scale out. It's not necessary because we can just drag my cursor to the end and see that average trading returns for addresses that have been active in the last 30 days are at plus 19.5%. Average trading returns for addresses active in the past 365 days are up over 80%, which is one of the highest Link has ever been. That's great for the average trader who is part of this, but we also have to be aware that this is a metric that on average over time will hover around 0% no matter what time frame you're looking at. So the 30-day will eventually retrace back to zero. That could be because Link goes flat for 30 days, or it could happen quicker if Link's price starts to drop in the next few weeks. It's hard to say, but if you're looking at probability, the bet would be that prices retrace at least somewhat to get the average trading returns back close to 0%. And of course, the
Yeah.
same goes for the long-term traders.
Yeah, yeah, and for those viewers out there who don't know what MVR, what the MVRV metric helps measure, I guess it helps if it's above zero. It's probably helps measure the probability of selling pressure. Yeah, and if it's below zero, is it it's more the probability of buying pressure? Did
Yeah,
I
it's
get that
market
right, Brian?
value. Market value to realized value is what MVRV stands for, and a high value essentially means there's a bit too much profit compared to average. Lower value means there's a bit too much bleeding and losses compared to average. And just like any other sector, crypto is still a zero-sum game. There's an equal amount of trading profits and trading losses that happen. There's a buyer and a seller for every asset. So when the buyers are succeeding so much more than the sellers, there is usually some event to balance things out given enough time going by. So right now, looking at this model, which I transitioned over to, it's showing that Chainlink, for example, would be, it's actually, I'm surprised it's not showing right now on here, but it would be among these red bars, indicating that it's overbought because the average returns, the market value compared to realized value, is so high. The realized value is exceeding what the current market value is, and that would mean that it's overbought. And you can see almost all of the projects on our list now in this model are either semi-overbought or overbought. A few neutrals here and there. Bitcoin itself is one you always want to take into account, and even that is showing overbought right now. So that's a bit of concern and something we need to be aware of when accounting for the risk of adding on to your positions now or even opening a new position. Ideally, you want to see these bars looking the exact opposite, and it's a bunch of yellow, green, and green bars all over the place, indicating they're underbought. So it certainly doesn't mean the top is like about to happen, but the probability that it is close is certainly increased. So there's an increased risk right now in the markets.
Yep. Yep. No, thanks for that, Brian.
Absolutely. We also did a study. I wanted to point this out really quick, where we um, did basically a bot signal analysis of any asset that was hitting the top 3 trending assets on our top 10 social trends list, especially if the asset is pumping like this. So this little mini bar is basically the price performance over the last 7 days. And when you see something like Numeraire trending quite obviously due to a price pump. The question is, what would you want to do if you saw this right now and saw that it had an increased amount of attention and the mainstream is paying attention to? The correct answer, at least 72% of the time, is to short it. And it's kind of the opposite of what especially novice traders think when they see assets, suddenly trending. They think, oh, Numeraire, I've never heard of it, but look at how much the price has gone up. Maybe it'll do that for a second phase and I can jump in. Those are usually the traders that lose money because the mainstream is jumping on it for the purpose of FOMOing, the opposite of FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt. And that is causing a lot of new small buys that are just feeding the whales' sell walls, because the whales were already in back here. And now they're just hoping they can find, large prices to sell at. So they don't have to sell when it's down here. They can sell it at the very top because there's so many new addresses being created trying to obtain Numeraire because they've just heard of it for the first time. So we did an entire study. This article is really awesome. You should check it out, Andy, as well as your community, because it talks about how we did our study, the sample size we used, which was massive, to make sure that this wasn't a fluke. And we found 72.1% of these assets that went into the top 3 on our trending list lost money over long stretches of time. This wasn't just a small sample when there was a quick bear market or a dip in the markets. This is an extensive study over many, many hours, months, years, etc., to make sure that this was an accurate study. And that is very significant. If you're a sports bettor, winning 55% of your coin flips is pretty good, right? So 72.1% of the time, if you're shorting just based on that simple notion that a pumping coin hitting the top 3 will go down, 3 out of 4 times almost is a pretty good ratio.
Yeah, that's quite an insight. I'll make sure to forward that link to our community. No, thanks for that.
Absolutely. And I know. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, no. I just saw that I saw Litecoin next on that one. No, as in on
the list.
Yeah, on that list.
So it's not exact. So this would be an example where it may be trending due to something that happened on Reddit, because you can see the chart price didn't necessarily reflect what we saw here. So these are the kind of price charts. If it's like really pumping compared to the rest of the markets, that means it's almost certainly trending, getting talked about more due to the price rising, not because of something, like a partnership or increased interest because of its tech, something like that. That would make it more irrelevant to the study. But what you'd want to look for is an asset that is clearly head and shoulders above the rest of the markets for a temporary amount of time and causing people to FOMO into it, like this.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to show, because I haven't talked to you since this was released, is this pretty intense looking heat map, which we call the asset activity matrix. And what it does is it measures the amount of high versus low activity for about 115 different assets here that we have full data on. And it shows the name of the asset and what market cap rank it currently is. And then it measures how hot each of the top indicators on sentiment are stacked up compared to their 3-month average. In short, what it's doing is saying over the past 7 days, how hot is, for example, 0x, the first one here alphabetically, in terms of active addresses, network growth, whale transactions, the key stakeholders that hold between $100,000 to $1 million in that asset, the social dominance, the exchange inflow, basically the money going in or out of exchanges, mean dollar age, which is the average age in which the coins have been sitting in the same wallets, so how stagnant it is. And then lastly, age consumed, which is similar to the last one, but it multiplies the amount of tokens that are being moved on a daily basis multiplied by how old those tokens were in terms of like the stagnancy of sitting in those wallets. So we take all 8 of these metrics together and we give it a red to blue rating. Intuitively, red is very active, blue is very inactive compared to what the average has been on any given day for the last 3 months. So long story short, you're trying to figure out which assets here are seeing some serious increased activity. And you can even just, if you want to shortcut your way there, you can just look at how red or how greenish blue, the asset is, where this one is quite cold, Project Galaxy, whereas Wi-Fi is going nuts right now. And you can see the price returns too. I know it's very small. Let me make it just a tad bigger. But yeah, you can basically see, Wi-Fi, tons of red boxes. So that's indicating there's a lot of network activity. It's up 3% today. It's up 81% in the last 7 days, 138% in the last 30 days, and 121% in the last 90 days. That's what those 4 percentages mean from left to right. So there is, I know this is kind of how my brain works, but it seems like a lot of our community like these types of things where you have everything on one page, not having to scroll between one asset at a time like I just did for Chainlink. It's all right here. And you've got basically a full, almost, I guess I like to joke that it's kind of like a spaceship interface where you just have all these red and blue lights and you can just hone in on whatever you're looking for. Looking to short, well, we have something like request, which is very blue right now with little network growth and address activity, stuff like that. If you're looking along, something like Decentraland could be interesting because it's super red right now. But unlike Wi-Fi that has already pumped a lot, Decentraland is still, whoops, didn't mean to drag a box there on accident. Decentraland is still relatively neutral. I guess 30 days it's pumped a lot, but these price returns are fairly run of the mill compared to the average asset out there. So that's the kind of stuff you can do. And obviously the assets I just named are not investment advice. I recommend looking more into them if you plan on making any decisions. But we also have leaderboards too, right? So if you don't want to look at all the colored boxes, you can just take a look at, which assets of these ones that we have on this model have pumped the most in the last day or in the last week or last 30 or 90 days, or which assets are simply leading their categories for any of those 8 metrics we just talked about. Ergo, DYDX, and Pax Gold, they have a rank of 1 because this is their top day of address activity over the past 3 months. On the other end of the spectrum, ApeCoin is having its 3rd worst day because we're looking at the past 90 days and it's showing an 88, right? So there's a ton to this. And if you're analytically inclined, like we are at Santiment and you, Andy, you can quickly just obtain a ton of information and, kind of shortcut your way through what's happening in crypto and select your altcoins, 100 times faster. And I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah, this is a dream come true. I mean, you must have spent so many hours on this, Brian.
I had a blast. I really enjoyed putting it together, and admittedly, I've told people this on other interviews. I made it first and foremost so I could find more interesting things to report to our community quicker instead of checking some of the top assets and being like, address activity not that special, network growth not that special. Here I just go, okay, which assets are seeing the biggest network growth? Looks like I should talk a little bit more about Ergo because it's having its biggest day today in active addresses, network growth, whale transactions, exchange flow. So there's a bunch of money moving off exchanges. Even its dormant activity is really high. So this has just been a blessing for me. And it seems the early responses from our community is they really enjoy using it. So I definitely recommend anyone who wants to try this out and just check on it on a daily basis. Um, Grab yourself a free trial and use the code EquitiesTracker if you choose to become a pro member with us. You get your first week free. The next weeks or the next months after that forever are as low as $44 a month, and it can be even lower if you purchase with Sand Token, which is our native discount token. So that's my plug for the day, if you will.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is amazing. And to be honest, Max actually gave me a preview. He showed me very quickly the heat map that you'd created,
Oh, cool.
and
So this isn't
yeah,
your
and
first time seeing it.
no, no. Well, I saw it on his tiny phone when he showed
Sure.
it to me, and I was like, "Whoa!" I have to figure out how to use it. But now you've just done a great intro to how to use it. So
Yeah, and I've got an
that's amazing.
upcoming tutorial video that I'll be releasing soon too. So you guys can keep an eye on our
Cool.
YouTube channel. I'll share it with you, Andy. And
Yeah.
there's also a written insight too. So if you'd like to read
Awesome.
a little more instead of listen to my voice, we wrote about it. It's called "The New Activity Matrix Model for Sandbase Pro is a game changer for crypto analytics." And this is not a
Oh,
title that I use lightly. Like I really believe that this can be the future of crypto analysis among the many other tools that are out there for many of you. I don't want to uh, diminish the impact that others have had.
I mean, this is absolutely amazing. I mean, like for someone who's quite data driven, I love what you've done. Like I appreciate the work, the effort and the work that's been put into it. This is a dream come true for an analyst, like
Thanks, my friend.
yeah,
I do
yeah,
appreciate it, and I look forward to more talks about ways it can be improved. We kind of opened the beta for our uh, community about a month ago, and they give great feedback and tell us what can be better all the time. So that this can be the
yeah.
perfect, end all be all type of tool that people can use to do their daily analysis.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I also wanted to add, now it's time for me to do the plug. We're actually working on the background. Me and Max are working on the background, where we're looking to offer a class in Malaysia at the office with Max coming over. We're trying to work through some syllabus where if you're interested in how to use sentiment, if you're interested in the basics of not only sentiment analysis, but having a how to understand the metrics that the on-chain metrics that Brian talks about every month with us. It'll be a great opportunity. We're looking at some early next year in Q1. Uh, I'll leave that there. And I will inform our community. But if you are interested, look, leave a comment in the comment section below and let us know. We're bringing sentiment to Southeast Asia.
Yeah, it
So
sounds like it's gonna be pretty amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing how that turns out.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I am looking forward to being a student.
We can all
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 right.
learn something at any time. So I learn things from our own community and our other staff members all the time. That's what makes your community at Equities Tracker and ours at Sentiment so great is we're all humble traders and uh, analytically inclined people who are trying to find new ways to study the blockchain, which is still extremely new. We have to remember that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And just a snippet of info. The stock market's been around for 500 years, right? Thereabouts. Crypto's been around. Well, Bitcoin being the longest, right? What? 11. Sorry. How many years now?
Technically
2009.
2008, 08,
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
09, depending on
yeah, yeah,
when you
yeah,
believe it
yeah.
started.
Yeah, so as Brian said, we're so early. Like this is just the beginning. Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
it's been a great session.
I
Brian.
agree, Andy. It's always great to catch up with you, and I'm already looking forward to assessing the markets right before Christmas next month and seeing how we're going to end up in 2023.
Oh yeah, looking forward to it. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in, and once again, thank you for sparing your time, Brian. It's always a pleasure to have you, and we look forward to the next session.
Always, my friend. Take care, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye bye.